Right, so this is MacRed, and MacRed is a slightly more complicated microscope because it can do two jobs. It can do fluorescence imaging or it can do colour imaging. So what I'm going to do is run through the startup procedure, first for fluorescence imaging and then for colour imaging. If you get confused, we've got the quick start instructions here which run you through the basics to get you going. We also have our safe system of work here. We explain here that we are expecting people to wear a lab coat and fresh gloves when they're in the microscope facility. We need you to start and finish on time to allow the next person to come in safely and you to leave safely. We also need you to clean the microscope. Ideally at the beginning and the end of your session we have got some 70% ethanol and some tissue for that. So for fluorescence imaging, what you need to do is turn on the mercury power supply. You need to turn on the filter wheel. And you need to turn on the camera. If you want to do bright field imaging at the same time, although it will be grey because the camera is a monochrome camera, you can turn on the mono LED as well. And then you switch on the computer. To put on your sample, I recommend you select a low power objective like this 10x, move the filter wheel, the focus drive, down to the bottom, put your sample in like this, move the sample so it's more or less in focus and then bring it up so it's in a sensible place. When you've finished imaging, what you need to do is obviously turn everything off in reverse order, transfer your data to the network and then take your sample out safely, which means moving the stage down and taking it out, and then you need to clean the lens. To do this you need some of our lens tissue. So you take a piece of lens tissue like this. I hold it like this, so that means your fingers don't come in contact with the lens. If you've just been using an air objective, you can just clean it like this at the end of the session and throw it in the bin. If you've been using an oil objective, what you need to do is get a little blob of ethanol, put it onto the lens tissue, use it to get the oil off, and then finally get the last bits of ethanol off because it will dry on the lens, and then throw it in the bin. Okay, so if you were turning on the microscope for colour imaging, you don't need the fluorescence. So when you're turning it on, you need to turn on the shutters, the LED and the colour camera here, which is hiding at the back, but it has a big red arrow saying colour camera. When you're looking at the system, the sample by eye, you need to make sure that you have this lever, which has got the orange blob on it, pushed right in. If you pull this lever out, that will send the light to the camera. The last thing to mention is this very small dial here. I hope you can see it. If the dial is straight, you can see there's a Tipex line here and a little mark here. If those two things are connected, this means the light is going to the fluorescence camera. If it is turned, you can hear a click, that sends light through to the colour camera. This is important if you're starting your session because you need to check which way the light is going at the beginning. If you're doing fluorescence imaging, make sure that this is set so it's a continuous line, so the light goes to the intensity camera for fluorescence. If you're doing colour imaging, check it's this way, and that's something you need to do yourself. It's not automated. Okay, to turn it all off, it's just all the switches in reverse order.